guys, Samantha from Jessama Tutorials here, and today I'm going to show you a fun little technique I like to call Ripple Blade Mokume Gane. So what you're going to need for this effect are some colours of your choice. Doesn't matter how many you have. You need to have at least 2. In this project I'm going to be using 3, and these are all Primo colours. I've got Primo White, Primo Purple and Primo Silver. And I've just stacked them into a block like this. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to run this through the pasta machine on my thickest setting, lengthening it like this. Now if you have little edges like this, don't worry about it, that's perfectly fine for this technique. You just want to stack it like that. The only rule for this is that you can't have 2 colours on top of each other. So when you cut it in half, you don't want to be stacking it like that so that you have silver on top of silver. You want to be stacking it so that you have a repetition of the colours before. So you always need to have one colour facing up and another colour facing down. You don't want to have this colour facing down and up some of the time. You want it either facing up or facing down. So that's what we've got so far. I'm going to run this through again, and again I'm going to be lengthening it on my thickest setting. And my thickest setting is a number 7. So there we are, flattened it out again. And all of the colours that I started with were run through on my thickest setting. So I'm just going to stack it. I'm not going to worry about this bit over here. And there we are, I've got more stripes. Again, I'm going to be running it through on my thickest setting, lengthening it. Just like that. And so I'm going to be doing one last stack. And then we can run it through and begin our project. Just like that. So you want to have lots of lines. So I'm going to run through one last time. Again, thickest setting. So that's where I'm at. Okay, so I'm going to be showing you 2 versions. I'm going to be showing you one with a relatively thick blade and one with a thinner blade. So I'm just going to tidy up these edges quickly. And I'll show you some variations of the technique in a little while at the end of the video. What you're going to need for this are ripple blades. Whoops, how'd that get there? That must have got off my hand. I'll just scrape it off quickly. Okay, so anyway, what you're going to need for this tutorial are some ripple blades. Now these are the ripple blades that I have. You can see one's got larger ripples, one's got smaller ripples. So I'm going to be showing you the larger ripples first. So we just want to get rid of that accidental piece of clay, which happens sometimes. Now what you want to do is you want to take your ripple blade and you want to start from one end and work your way across. Just like that. And so you can see it comes out with a really interesting effect. Now these pieces that we shaved off, I like to save them, and I'll show you what I do with them in just a second. Okay. And again, you're going to shave the center. Now the goal is to try and keep this symmetrical. So what you want to do is, the blade's got ridges and the ones facing down are the ones that gouge. So you want to angle it so that so that the inward facing ones are resting along your lines, so that you're not cutting extra lines. Just like that, so that when you bring it across, you still got a symmetrical look. I hope that made sense. And you can carry on going over and making sure that you've gouged out what you need, because you want to have these lines nice and defined. Oops. Just like that. Now you could flatten it out like that, it would look really cool like that, but I want to flip it and then pat it down to a tile again because I don't want it moving around. And I now want to go with my ripple blade in the opposite direction. So try and keep your ripple blade steady as you do this. You want to keep your hands resting on your work surface while you do this because you want to try and get it in one stroke. And then just try to work off any pieces that might have fallen off your blade. And now these pieces I'm just going to ball up and I'll use them in a different leftover technique. Okay, like that. Okay, so that's the one. And now what you need to do, well, you don't need to do it, you can leave it raised like this. It has quite an interesting texture, so you could leave it raised, but I want to flatten it out. So what I'll do before I bring it over to the pasta machine is I'll start tapping it down with my fingers so that I can make sure that you don't get too much distortion, because if you went through the pasta machine you could get a little bit of distortion, so I like to do it a little bit with my fingers first. And then I'll bring over my roller and I'll roll in both directions. And if I can flatten it out with my roller and I don't need my pasta machine, that's best. Okay, so you'll just run your finger over it every now and then to make sure that you haven't missed any areas. Okay, and there we are, that's flat. So I'll bring that up for you to see. Oops. There you are. So that's what you get when your ripples are fairly small. Now I'll bring over the other sheet so we can do it with a larger blade. There we are. So again, I'll just stamp that onto the tile so that it's not moving around. And I'll bring over my larger ripple blade, and again, just like before, we'll slice down the length of the sheet. And I like to try and get it in one go, so if you can, try and do that, just like that. So that was near perfect. And now I'll take these pieces, and as always, like I said before, I like to keep them, and I'll show you in just a minute what we're going to do with these, because as you can see they're quite pretty and it would be a shame to screw them up in a ball. So I'll just keep those over there. Again, turn this around and I'll try and get another clean slice out of this, just like that. So as you can see, this technique it's a little hard to keep clean while you're doing this, because there's little bits and bobs of clay floating around all over the place, and it sticks to your hands and all sorts of things, so it's a little annoying. And again, just like before, you'll flatten this out with your fingers. I like to go over the humps and just push them down so that the sheet is more flat. Just like that. And then we'll bring over our roller and rolling in all directions, flatten it out. Okay, until it's flat. Okay. Now I'll pick that up and I'll bring the other one that we just did a second ago over for comparison to show you what the difference between the two looks like. So this one's, they're basically the same technique, but they achieve an entirely different pattern. So that's what these two look like. Now I'm going to bring over a piece of white I rolled through on my third thinnest setting on my pasta machine. And I'm going to grab one of our pieces and drape it carefully over the piece of white, like that. And I'll do that with all my other ones. And I'll mix some of the larger slices with some of the smaller slices. And this is what I like to do. So I'll show you another version of this in a minute. Once I've angled all of these, so they can go in all sorts of directions, they can crisscross over each other. Have some fun. You can include some silver leaf in this as well, or metal leaf. I've tried that in the past, and it has a nice effect. So I'd continue doing this until I filled up the entire piece, just like that. Then we'll take our acrylic rod and we'll start flattening in all directions. You don't want to be going in one direction while you're doing this, you want to be going in all directions, otherwise you can get distortion. You want to carry on doing this until it feels flat on your piece. Just like that. So now that can be used in a bead as well. Okay, so those are the ones that we did today. Now I'm going to bring over a few examples. So here's a leftover one that I did. And here's some ripple blade ones I did with the small blade. And here's another one I did with the larger blades. So those are interesting. And I did another one with leftovers, which wasn't really Mokume Gane. I took a ball of leftover colours that kind of looked interesting, and I balled them up, flattened them out, ran it through on my thickest setting, put a piece of white over the top, ran it through the thickest setting, and the white was on my thinnest setting, placed it over the leftover clay, which was on my thickest setting, and then ran it through the thickest setting again. And then I basically did the same as I did on this one. But because it wasn't Mokume Gane, you get a flatter look. So it works really well with leftovers as well. So that's what it looks like with the leftovers, and I think it looks pretty interesting. So I do hope that that tutorial was helpful to you, and if it was, please do check the links below, as there'll be links to more tutorials like this one. And as always, I hope to see you in the next video. Bye for now.